Hi everybody, it's Pat Patterson, the racing guy, welcoming you back once again to our YouTube channel. Appreciate you stopping by. As always, we invite you to like our channel and to subscribe to the Racing Guy YouTube channel. Got an interesting upload for you today, going all the way back 1994. One of the first TV shows that I ever did was called Raceday on TNN. This is one of those episodes, and it's a ton of fun to look back. Let me give you some of the highlights. First of all, it's NASCAR at the Glen. Our buddy Jason Young covering all of that. We've got all kinds of information about Richard Petty coming up in this edition of the show. Trans Am winner, my old buddy Ron Fellows, one of the fastest Canadians I've ever known on road racing, and the Dodge Shelby Pro Series. We also highlight that in this show. We've got Pure Later sweepstakes programs, which is pretty cool to take a look at as well. A lot of fun stuff. Al Unser Jr., a winner at Mid-Ohio. Brian Baxter's got that story. Neil Kasselbaum talks about the historic big one. Kenny Jacobs, the big winner there. And we've also got a whole bunch of other information like the Hungarian Grand Prix. All kinds of fun for you here on this edition of TNN Race Day. This was a fun show to do. We had a lot of fun all those years doing that with the Nashville Network, and glad we can share it with you. So take a look, like the channel, and be sure to subscribe as we continue to put up all of these great memories from days gone by. I'm Pat Patterson. See you next time.
Martin makes it 2 in a row at the Glen. Rogers boys do it again at Mid-Ohio. And Earl Baltus's place, a hometown favorite, pockets some hefty change. All that and a whole lot more straight ahead on Race Day. And hi everybody, I'm Pat Patterson. We hope you've been having a terrific Sunday. 40 Winston Cup drivers were hoping their Sunday afternoon would be a great one when they took the green flag at today's Bud at the Glen. But for pole sitter Mark Martin, he was hoping to score a win like the one this race last year that put him on a winning streak. Jason Young tells us what happened.
In the first 5 laps, road racers Scott Lagacy and Butch Leitzinger were in the pits with problems. Ward Burton took a ride in the wet grass and slid to a soft stop without damage. Then Bobby Labonte wasn't as lucky when he slammed the tire barrier. He too was able to continue. Derek Cope was in his first race as Bobby Allison's driver, but a transmission problem sent him behind the wall. Caution number 2 flew when Kyle Petty and P.J. Jones got together entering turn 11. P.J. kept going while the mellow yellow Pontiac driver's day was done against the wall. Meanwhile, the battle for the top spot was heating up between Dale Earnhardt and pole sitter Mark Martin. Give it back to the Valvoline driver in turn 1. Then, just as everyone was completing green flag pit stops, Labonte lost control entering the pits. Bobby Hamilton avoided the Maxwell House car but slammed the wall. Labonte continued while the Kendall machine was badly battered. With just 10 laps to go to the finish, Hut Strickland went for a slide that ended right in the middle of the track. He got it going and made it to the pits. That set up a 7-lap dash to the checkers with Mark Martin and Ernie Irvan leading the way. One of the favorites to win was Rusty Wallace, who was in the top 5, but contact with Wally Dallenbach sent the Miller Genuine Draft Ford to the pits. Dallenbach's luck didn't hold up either when he went off the course with just 2 laps remaining. But up front, there were no problems for Martin as he took his second win in a row at Watkins Glen. Irvan was second with Dale Earnhardt, Ken Schrader, and Ricky Rudd rounding out the top 5. I'm Jason Young, reporting for Race Day.
Thanks, J-Man. Checking our Jiffy Lube point standings. Earnhardt is now only 27 points ahead of Irvan in the title chase. Rusty Wallace still holds down third, but Martin's win puts him only 3 points behind the Miller Genuine Draft driver. Kenny Schrader rounds out the top 5 for another week. And our congratulations go out to this week's winner of the UAW GM Teamwork Award of Excellence. The honor goes to Robbie Loomis and the number 43 STP Pontiac team owned by Richard Petty. Wally Dallenbach and crew had a great day at the Glen. Way to go, guys. The Winston Cup Tour wasn't alone at Watkins Glen this weekend. Yesterday, the Trans Am and Dodge Shelby Pro Series took to the 2.5-mile road course, and here are the highlights.
It was a rainy mess that greeted the SCCA Trans Am Series at Watkins Glen for their latest stop on the 94 Tour. Ron Fellows fought problems all day, including a first lap penalty and an engine misfire. But at the end, he had his Mustang Cobra en route to victory lane. This was the third time this year that Fellows has taken his Tom Gloy machine to the winner's circle. Fellows' teammate Dorsey Schrader was second, giving Gloy his first 1-2 finish of the season. And with Tommy Kendall taking his all-sport body quencher Mustang to a third-place finish, Ford had its first podium sweep of the year. That gives the Ford Brigade a commanding lead in the manufacturer's points by 17 over Chevrolet. Fourth and fifth went to Paul Gentilozzi and points leader Scott Pruitt. Now shifting gears to the Dodge Shelby Pro Series and another great battle at Watkins Glen in the rain. Right from the start, pole sitter Scott Harrington had his McDonald's-sponsored machine out front. He was closely pursued by Augie Paps III and Mike Davies. The slippery conditions gave some drivers a hard time. Here, Bill Dollahite went for a spin but was able to keep going. Then there was this roadblock right in the middle of turn 1. Somehow there was no contact and again they kept going. Just the opposite was this crash that collected Robert Urich in the yellow number 3 a few laps later. But up front no one could handle Harrington as he led from flag to flag for the victory. Nemo Gidley was second, followed by Augie Paps, Kyle Kinser, and Mike Davies.
Now, for the past couple of months, TNN has been running a special promotion for NASCAR fans during several Busch Grand National races. Fans had a chance to enter the Purilators Drive for the Winter Sweepstakes. Well, now Raceday is happy to announce the big winners. The 3 first-place winners are Charles Mankey, Janet Krause, and Larry Van Scoy. They each receive TNN mini gas-powered race cars and a trip or two to Phoenix, Arizona for the Slick 5500 at Phoenix International Raceway. And a large congratulations go out to the grand prize winner, John Bass of Hartsville, South Carolina. John receives a case of Purolator oil filters and a case of Purolator air filters. And, oh yeah, by the way, he also gets a 1994 Corvette LT1. Not too shabby. Still to come on this edition of Race Day. IndyCar highlights, modified actions, and the really big one. Stick around.
Race Day is brought to you in part by Mopar Chrysler Corporation Parts and the Chrysler Plymouth, Dodge, Dodge Truck, Jeep and Eagle dealers who sell and install them. By Jiffy Lube. If it doesn't say Jiffy Lube, it isn't. And by 104 Plus Octane Boost. Feel the power.
Welcome back to Race Day, everybody. For the past couple of IndyCar races, someone was finally able to shut the Penske cars out of victory lane. But the Penskes were back on top of the qualifying heading into today's race at Mid-Ohio, and they were looking to return to winning form. Could they do it? Brian Baxter has the answer.
At the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, Al Unser Jr. took the green flag to lead 28 Indy cars to the start of the Mid-Ohio 200. Paul Tracy quickly grabbed the lead away from Little Al on the 2.2-mile road circuit. First mishap came early as Parker Johnstone shot off course. Then a few laps later, Scott Goodyear got into the back end of Mike Groff's car, and both spun out and ended up temporarily off the racetrack. But at the front of the field, it was the battle of the Penskes. Paul Tracy led most of the race with Al Unser Jr. in hot pursuit down the straightaways and nearly alongside through some of the turns. Then came the heartbreaker for Tracy, trying to get by fourth-place Robbie Gordon, who was a lap down. Tracy slipped by when Gordon lost control briefly in the corner. But a local yellow was out, and race leader Tracy had to come in for a black flag penalty for passing under the yellow. That was the difference as Al Unser Jr. ran at the front of the field the rest of the way to take home his 6th victory of the season.
Well, you know, we hadn't finished the last couple races, and we needed the points, and so, you know, the big thing was to finish, and it was just a great day for the whole Marlboro Team Penske.
Well, we just got, I thought, you know, we had a good race going with the Marlboro car, and, you know, we came up on a bunch of lap cars with Robbie Gordon leading the pack, and he didn't want to let anybody by, and then, you know, we got into a yellow area, and he almost slid off the track, and I was able to slip by him at the apex, and they considered that passing into the yellow. So it's, you know, again, had to come in, lost about 10 seconds, and then after the yellow, behind Robbie again, and didn't want to let me by, and Al was able to make up the gap, couldn't close.
Behind Unser in first and Tracy in second, Emerson Fittipaldi was third to round out a 1-2-3 Penske team finish at Mid-Ohio. I'm Brian Baxter reporting.
Okay, if you're a sprint car fan, I am, then Eldora Speedway was definitely the place to be this weekend. That's because one of the richest sprint car events of the season was held there last night. It was the second annual historic Big One, and Neil Kassebaum has the highlights.
The Big One is only 40 laps long, but with a $100,000 check for the winner, that makes it a really big one. This open race for sprint cars pitted 46 of the nation's best against each other under threatening skies. The preliminary heats put Jack Haudenschild and Kenny Jacobs on the front row, with Dave Blaney not far behind. Jacobs was the early leader as a light rain began to fall, but not enough to slow Dave Blaney, who blasted to the lead on lap 2. It looked like his domination of the Eldora Speedway was going to continue from the night before. Another battle took shape for fourth as Jeff Swindell and the other Blaney, Dale, slid around the moist clay wheel to wheel, with Swindell the winner of that position. Just short of halfway, Kenny Jacobs was back in the swing of things as the rain continued to fall. After this race, he might be classified as a mutter, as he took the lead from a slipping Blaney. As Jacobs took control of the race and started seeing big dollar signs, Haudenschild took second place for the final change in positions of the night. It was Kenny Jacobs the rest of the way to take the Big One number 2.
This is a big race, and I've been trying to win a big race for a long time. I knew I could do it myself. I just had to get everything else put together to handle it, and tonight was our night. We were just on the money.
Haudenschild took home $20,000 for second. Dave Blaney $10,000 for third. Jeff Swindell and Dale Blaney each pocketed $6,000 and $5,000 respectively. I'm Neil Kassebaum reporting for Raceday.
And out of the Big One comes our Mopar High Performer. The award goes to Kenny Jacobs, who had patience, and it paid off in a big way when he overcame a dominant Dave Blaney for the biggest win of his career. Congratulations to Mighty Mouse. Great run. In the days leading up to last night's big show, there was plenty of other sprint car racing to keep fans going. Among that action at Eldora was the World of Outlaws Tour and the Club All-Star Sprinters. Here are those highlights.
The first of 3 action-packed nights of racing at the Eldora Speedway belonged to the Club All-Stars. Their feature event had veteran racer Frankie Kerr on the front row, along with Tim Engler. Engler got a good jump when the green flag waved, but Kerr was set to fly and out of turn 2 wrestled away the top spot. The event only saw one problem out on the track when number 65 Jimmy Carr had problems pulling off the track after his car lost power, and apparently its steering. Back to the race, and Kerr's handling started to go away, and Kevin Huntley began to close in on the leader Kerr. But time ran out, and Kerr ran to the bank with a $4,000 winner's check. Behind Kerr and Huntley were Joey Saldana, Dale Blaney, and Byron Reed. Friday night in the World of Outlaws brought their brand of winged racing to the Ohio track. The Buckeye Bullet, better known as Dave Blaney, shared the front row with the King of the Outlaws, better known as Steve Kinser. The number 10 was also one position better than the number 11 as the feature got underway, and Kinser could do nothing but watch Blaney disappear into the night. Behind them, number 22 Jack Haudenschild and number 1 of Sammy Swindell were left to battle for third. Swindell took the high groove out of 2, but the outside walls there first, and even though he continued, he was out of contention for the win. But up front, Dave Blaney was all over the track, high, low, and in between the rest of the field. And with a half-lap lead over second place Steve Kinser, Blaney passed fourth place Mark Kinser as he took the checkers.
You know, we've been successful here a little bit in the past, and you know, Woodruff and Dwayne got the car perfect. I mean, when it's like that, it makes it easy for me. You can just kind of steer around them.
Behind second place Steve Kinser was Jack Haudenschild, Mark Kinser, and Jeff Swindell.
Stick around, everybody. When we come back, more open wheelers and big money dirt tracking when race day rolls on. Welcome back live Race Day, everybody. While a lot of people think that NASCAR racing is a southern sport, some of the best NASCAR action you'll find anywhere happens in the Northeast. That's thanks to the Busch Grand National North and Featherlight Modified Tours. Stephanie Boyd tells us what they've been up to this weekend.
Pole sitter Charlie Pasturiak led the early going of the Featherlight Modified event at Riverhead Raceway, but before too long, number 15 Wayne Anderson was battling Steve Park for the top spot, with Anderson getting the advantage for the moment. Shortly after that, Tony Ferrante threw up a roadblock to bring out the yellow. This time on the restart, it was Park taking the lead. The next big caution flew for this mess in turn 1, which looked more like a Chinese fire drill than a race. Number 8 Jeff Fuller was a victim, and he had to limp back to the pits on 3 wheels. Then on the restart, Park was leading Jeff's brother Rick Fuller when Rick wound up in the wall. The wildest thing was when Tom Cravenho spun, but somehow everyone managed to miss him. But a couple of laps later, he wasn't as lucky when a couple more cars spun and Cravenho wound up getting the boot. Finally, on the last lap, the craziness continued with this 2-car wreck, but Park already taken the win. Number 47, Kelly Moore, was on the pole for the Grand National North race and took the early lead. But on lap 33, second-running Jerry Marquis used lap traffic to his advantage to take over the point. There was caution on lap 74 when Tom Bowles and Ed Kennedy tangled in turn 2. Then there was yellow again when Steve Hoddick got into John Swanson on lap 91 of 150. Meanwhile, Marquis was still leading up front, but then a tire went down and sent the leader spinning down the front stretch. That gave the lead to Bobby Dragon, who had to fight off the challenges of points leader Dale Shaw in the final laps. Then with 2 to go, Shaw and third place Kelly Moore got together on the front stretch, and that gave Dragon all the room he needed to pick up his 10th career Busch North win. This is Stephanie Boyd reporting for Raceday.
There's lots of money to be had on the Have a Tampa All-Star Tour, and with 4 straight nights of racing this weekend, things looked even more attractive for the old pocketbook. Night number 4 is underway as we speak, but here's a look at some of the action from the first 3 shows.
The first of 4 nights was at Crossville Speedway, and it was no surprise when Series Hot Shoes Scott Bloomquist started on the pole and quickly jumped into the lead of the 50-lap affair. 40 cars had turned out for the big weekend, but only 24 made it into the feature. And Bloomquist was in his usual form at the head of them all, especially when he missed 2 lapped cars that went spinning in front of him. About the only time Bloomquist gets beat is when trouble he has no control over hits his car. And that's what happened on lap 10 when he broke an axle shaft and was out of the hunt. After that, Dale McDowell in the number 17 took over the lead, and in the end, second place Scott Sexton tried his best to catch the point man, but he couldn't pull it off, and McDowell took the win. Behind them, it was Ronnie Johnson, Billy Ogle Jr., and Patrick Duggan. On Friday night at Cleveland Speedway, Bloomquist set fast time, and that put him on the pole for Saturday night's feature. Fortunately for him, there were no mechanical problems on this night, and the biggest thing he had to contend with was lap traffic. So it turned out to be a typical Bloomquist night as the number 18 led from flag to flag for his 16th Have a Tampa win. Mark Miner was second, followed by Dale McDowell, Jamie Perry, and Rex Ritchie.
And it's been a great first year for Sprint Car Racing's Association in California. We'll have some more of that, and we'll see some other action from around the country when race day rolls on. We'll be right back.
Race Day is brought to you in part by Mopar Chrysler Corporation Parts and the Chrysler Plymouth, Dodge Truck, Jeep and Eagle dealers who sell and install them.
And welcome back, everybody. Last weekend, most of the motorsports world had its eyes focused on Indianapolis and the Brickyard 400. But there was one event north and worth mentioning, and it was overlooked by all the attention of Indy. I'll let Stephanie Boyd give you the highlights.
One of the hottest new talents to sit behind the wheel of a race car is a guy you might have heard of by the name of Pat Patterson. And I'm not just saying that because he's my boss. Really. Pat was just one of a flood of drivers to take part in the Legends program at New Eddyville Speedway, a place that's most well known for its drag strip. Mr. P started driving a Legends car earlier this summer, and he showed some flashes of, dare I say, brilliance at Eddyville. Okay, so maybe he did get a little over-anxious once early in the evening, but he got the thing pointed back in the right direction and didn't have that much ground to make up. But in the celebrity race, he was unstoppable. The number 4 Raceday Chevy started on the pole and dominated from the get-go. Meanwhile, drag racer Scotty Cannon had a little trouble turning left. But in the end, it was all Mr. P who made his staff here at Raceday proud. In fact, he was so good they let him run in the feature event. But come on, Pat, do you really think you're number 1? The synchronized spinning event was won hands down by the father and son duo of Pat and Myron Gordon. Both kept going. Meanwhile, track owner and IHRA Pro Mod standout Carl Moyer was the class of the field all night in the number 3 machine. That is until Mike Whaley came along and challenged him at the end. The 63 machine tried his best to get by, but Moyer was able to hold off the charge and take the win at his own track. Behind Moyer and Whaley, it was Mike Hartley, Brad Moyer, and Larry Webb. By the way, Pat wound up a respectable 7th.
Okay, so we're lucky there wasn't more than 4 cars in the race. This morning, like most all Sunday mornings, I went out to get the Charlotte Observer first thing before going for a run. On the front page was a caption that read, "Remembering Tim Richmond." You see, it was 5 years ago yesterday that Tim Richmond died of AIDS. Liz Clark, writer for the Observer, did a wonderful job of reminding everyone in the Charlotte community of NASCAR's forgotten driver. Among the highlights of Richmond's career were 13 series victories and nearly $2.3 million in earnings in only 6 full seasons on the circuit. The flamboyant driver also shared the Driver of the Year honors with Dale Earnhardt in 1986 and was the Rookie of the Year in 1978 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The article that Liz Clark wrote reminded me, and probably a lot of other racing insiders, that we still haven't really dealt with the reason Tim is no longer mixing it up with Earnhardt, Irvin, and Wallace on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. 5 years later, it took a sharp newspaper writer like Liz to make me once again wrestle with reality. All of our other fallen stock car friends are afforded hero status, while Tim Richmond's memory is still yet sordid. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not applauding an alleged fast and loose personal life away from the racetrack, and even though I personally thought Tim Richmond was amazing behind the wheel, he wasn't a Winston Cup champion, and he had his bad days in the seat, as everybody does. I guess what Liz Clark's article reminded me most of today is that we still have Tim Richmond's file, if you will, on our desk, like a lot of others. 5 years later, I still haven't found the right place to put it. I found a special place for Davy's file and Allen's file and Neil's file and others. Today, Liz Clark from the Charlotte Observer reminded me with both barrels that it's time to find a place for Tim's file. Because if AIDS ever robs the racing world of another star, young or old, I hope that it will be Tim Richmond's file that all of us in the motorsports community turn to. Thanks, Liz, for reminding me of something I should have never forgotten. That's going to do it for this edition of Race Day. Until next week, I'm Pat Patterson. So long, everybody.
Transportation provided by Cedar Ridge RV Center of Branchville, New Jersey. Call 1-800-988-4884 and find out why Cedar Ridge is the choice of champions. Communications provided by Racing Electronics, the official communications of Raceday. For a free catalog, call 1-800-272-7111. And by Featherlight Trailers, the official trailer of NASCAR and major sponsor of the NHRA. Remember to call Featherlight for all your trailer needs at 1-800-800-1230.